And, of course, we thank you all for being with us and for supporting this little 2-hour conference with the Informer. You can contact us, by the way, by using the chat room, which I'll be in shortly. But I would ask you also to do this and just give us about a half an hour to just lay a foundation down before we start hitting the questions. And there are many that I've already received. But I'm not going to also ask the Informer to lay down his credentials. What I'll do is I'll put something up on the website. But most of you who are listening have no problem with where he's coming from, the fact that he's researched as long as he has. And if anything, I'll just ask him how long he spent looking into this. And the reason we're doing this is not for any other reason, but to try to break down for you folks what's really going on, and that there are a lot of false hopes, lies, embellishments, and wishful thinking that's going on in the Patriot community. You got to realize that the cavalry ain't coming, and that the fix was in a long, long time ago. We'll just leave it at that. But anyway, I want to thank Big Jim out in Illinois for making this happen, and for all of you folks who are hooked in and supporting this 2-hour conference. And so, I tell you what, let me just ask you this. We may have just touched upon this the last time you were on, but, when did you realize that something really wasn't right? And then how long did you spend checking out that, in fact, you were correct about what was going on?
1976, and then I started researching in 1982.
All right. And was there a triggering moment for you where, that cast you into taking, I know there was for me.
Yeah, when I first started working in 1954, I hated Social Security and couldn't understand why I had to give money to the government to hold for me when I could do it myself. That's what started me.
And, all right, so what was the first step you took? Where did you go?
Oh, I didn't do anything until 1976 when I got into a traffic case where I beat the town and caused them just about ready to go bankrupt. And then I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't pinpoint it. At that time you had kids and you weren't really worried about government. But that's when it started, and it was over a parking ticket. It wasn't even over a traffic moving violation, but over a traffic ticket, parking ticket at a movie house. And I parked in backwards instead of driving in forward. Where the sign said. And I beat that, and I made them take all the parking meters out of the town because they were not up to par as to having the proper paperwork with the state filed to do that. I had them open up the road that went around behind the school at the parking lot because you can only go up one way and then turn around and come back out, and that was supposed to be an open road. They ended up having to get rid of 2 police officers out of 4 that was in the town, and they lost all that revenue, and they got fined by the state, and I went before the judge, and I couldn't understand what he said, and he says, you're free to go, I dismissed the case. And when I walked out, all the people stood with thumbs up as I walked out. And I didn't realize what I had done until it was in the newspaper.
And so from these, I guess you could say rather, it's cliche, but humble beginnings,
yeah,
you started to look deeper into just exactly what the deal was?
Right, And I called the motor vehicle, and before I went to court, and I paid $1, and I got the statute that said that they violated the particular parking ordinance, and I could park any way I wanted. I could park backwards, even though the sign said park forwards. And so I won on that issue, too. So they didn't like me too well. I was in a little town next to that town. It was near Fort Dix.
Yeah, you're a Jersey boy like I am.
Yeah.
But, were you being a wise guy back then, or did you just feel it was unjust?
It just, I went to the movies, and I came back out, and I had a $4 parking ticket. And I says, what the heck is this? And I went back into the movie house, and I asked the owner, and I says, I just got a ticket out here. And he says, well, I don't know what to tell you. He said, where'd you park? I says, over at the parking meter, and it's after 6 o'clock, and you don't need to put money in the parking meter. And so I looked at the ticket a little closer, and I says, oh, they got me for backing in instead of parking in the correct way that I was supposed to be ordered to do by the sign. So he says, well, I don't know, you can't fight City Hall. I just go down and pay it. And I said, screw them. I said, it's the principle behind the thing, because I knew that they can't tell me to park backwards. And then I called the state DMV and got that, and they put me in touch with the highway and department, and I explained what happened. And they said, oh, yeah, well, we'll send it to you for $1. So they sent it to me, and I was right. I didn't have to pull in frontwards on the parking meter, and I didn't have to pay the parking meter because naturally it was after 6 o'clock. And I told the guy, I says, well, they got that road closed off. They got a big fence there by the school, and you can't turn around. You got to back down. So I said, I backed down because the car was up there, and I happened to see this parking spot, and I just wheeled the car back in there, and that's it. He says, what, they closed the road down? I said, yeah. He says, give me some more information. So I gave it to him, so I got all that. And so the town had closed the street. It was actually a through street that went up and made a big U shape and come back out on the regular street, and they closed it off. And they couldn't do that, so they had to open that up and have the access of that road all the way around. The town just did everything how they wanted to do, and, that's where they were making their money.
And nobody challenged them.
And nobody challenged them until, little old me come along, 76, I was 20 years old.
Well, I mean, now we look at what you've done for the last 40 years or so, or 40-plus years.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been all about, municipal laws. But,
no.
but something obviously got a burr under your saddle, so that you would start to look deeper and deeper. Because not only myself, but those who are in this conference and others who may hear this also know something's not really right, and so we're wondering, I would say, collectively, as to when you finally said, what's going on the other side of the curtain? Are we necessarily being, one, lied to, and two, in the matrix of somebody else's creation?
Yeah, that was in 1982 because that's when I got involved with the IRS. And one thing led to another, and then the way the government was, and Schiff was going along, and I was like him. I was following everybody, and I kept losing. And this particular time I was in the court, and the appeals court, and it seemed to be going along okay until the DOJ from the state walked in and gave it to the judge, and the judge asked me, did I have any comment? I says, I just got it right now. The minute you got it is when I got it, so how can I make a comment? I got to read through 40 pages? Because that's when they hand me a brief. Schiff had just lost the case in Connecticut.
Is this the Schiff that goes around protesting the IRS?
Right.
Okay.
And see, he lived in Connecticut at the time.
Also, if you can, is there any way you can boost your volume a little bit? We're hearing that you're a little bit low.
No, I don't think I can.
Okay, well then put the phone in your mouth.
Okay.
All right, no problem. Go ahead. Go on with the story about what happened after Schiff.
So Schiff had lost, and the state came in and said that, my argument was the same as Schiff. And I called Schiff, and I said, hey, what happened? And I says, what you're doing, everything that you're doing and everybody else is doing is totally wrong. So I'm going to stop following what you and everybody else is saying and go do my own research. And that was in 82.
All right, and that led you down the IRS situation, right?
And one thing snowballed into more because the more you got involved with it, the more you find out that, and this is real library work. This is not internet work.
I know, yep.
And you go into the library and you pull a book out looking for something, and it catches your eye, and you say, okay, I'm going to look at this later. Of course, you forget about it. And you go back to find what you was trying to think about, and you can't find it. So I got in the habit of sticking the library books with little stickums.
Right. I remember that. Okay.
Yeah. And so then, one thing leads to another, and by just stumbling across this stuff, you start to get a picture of what you're looking for, so then the next time you go back in, you know what you're going to look for. but you don't exactly know where they have it in what book.
I'll just say this, and again, we'll cut a little quicker to the premise of this whole show. But I would say this: there was a time when I sat back before I even knew about you, and I kept pursuing what I felt was the path to find out. Okay, look, I don't care where this leads. Just let me know what's going on. I'm all right with it. Whatever it is, it is.
Right.
And then the last thing beyond all this, I said, oh my goodness, probably in a little bit more expletive terms.
Right.
And I said, could this whole deal about the U.S. and our founding fathers and all this stuff be a crock? And then I don't know what happened after that, but I started looking for you. You never sought me out. I mean, you're a private person and would like to be that way.
Right.
But I importuned you and I said, listen, can you help me? And my instinct's right about this, and can you point me? And you did.
Uh-huh.
And the point of the matter is, we are in a fairyland.
Oh, yeah. That is what, I guess me and Montgomery had found this out, I found about 1990, but I couldn't put my finger on it, and I was believing the Constitution was going to save everybody, and you could do this and that, and they got to listen to you, and the courts have to, the law is the law, and what it is, and that's passé now. I mean, I was just as ignorant as everybody else when it comes to that, and that's what led me into believing after reading case upon case. And you always go to the end of the case. You read the decision of the case. Now you go back to the very beginning and you start going down through the case to get to the end where you know the outcome is going to be, and it takes on a whole new light as to what they're doing
to get there.
Instead of down and you're saying, hey, the guy can win, the guy, well, I don't know, maybe, and you get down to the end and the guy lost.
All right.
And backwards, and doing the case backwards, you get a better perspective of how they are thinking.
Okay, and again, if you're in proximity to the computer, just be aware of that.
Right.
Okay.
I'm quite a ways away from it.
Okay. No, only because we got some breakup. All right, be that as it may, and somebody asked just how I found you, but as I just stated, I just sat here and saying, okay, how deep does this run? And I don't know, how I did it, but I came to you. I probably went to ATG Press, and I'll tell folks right now, if you want to find the writings of the Informer and James Montgomery, you can do that by going to ATG, that stands for Against the Grain, Adam Thomas Grass, ATGpress.com, and you'll see it's all there. That'll help you to a great deal. The I-Man has books. They're available. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But in the meantime, let's get into the nitty-gritty, because the vision I had, and that which I shared also with I-Man, he seemed to be okay with it, and that was to try to do something that was encapsulated. We've done a lot of shows. We'll repeat some stuff, but this would at least be concentrated into a 2-hour block where people could sit there and listen to it and say, okay, now I got it, and don't have to go through hours and hours where we go on other digressions. And this one is going to be the nitty-gritty. And so let's get to the very beginning of the beginning. First of all, as you stated time and time again, it's all about semantics. It's all about terms and terminology. But as it pertains to this nation, we think of it as the United States. We think of it as the United States of America. We think about it as America. Could you just break down what those three mean? And is it important not to mix up what's the United States, what's the United States of America, and what's America?
Okay, the United States is a place, a thing. It's a noun, and it's capital. The United States of the wall of unanimous declaration as a declaration by the representatives of the United States of America, all capital letters, in General Congress assembled. Well, the United States is actually Congress assembled. That's it. Wherever Congress assembled, that's the United States.
All right. The United States equals Congress assembled.
Right.
Okay.
Now, for the term United States of America, a lot of times you look at that, and in cases it'll say United States, and then when it gets into the real nitty-gritty of the case, right underneath in the beginning, it says United States of America. There is no difference. What it is if you take that and you say United States